All right. What's up, folks? We are live. We are live, and I'm not gonna stay on too long on this one, but I want to get into this one, man. And this one comes up the thought behind the live stream. I'm just random with live streams when I come up with ideals on subjects I want to cover. They just pop up randomly. I don't have to plan shit out, do it this and that. I don't have to write notes. A lot of my live streams just are implanted in my head. I'm almost like how they talk about Jay-Z or certain rappers that don't write down lyrics. They just go in the booth. They have it already programmed into their brain. They know what they're talking about. So that's just the way that I do things. So with this topic of sharecropping in the United States following slavery, this comes from me watching the documentaries on World War II, and I'm big in like war history and all that stuff. World War II is something I've been on once again tough. I've been watching World War II history since a child, Vietnam history, but a lot of war history. Something intrigues me about war history, and also related back to how these wars, post-war, affects American society. So I'm watching this one in Germany. So following World War II's end in Germany, because it's multiple fronts and where that war is taking place and where the United States is involved. And it's crazy. I may need to start getting more into watching World War II as America shifts over towards its focus on Japan and stuff a little bit more. But so with the fall of Nazi Germany, I'm watching it like, so looking at the country, what happens post World War II and the fall of the Nazi terror, Nazi reign, Nazi empire, whatever you call it. And so I'm looking at it like, man, I need to focus in on this about within our country, because as we look at it, because we still go through these things here in this country. And I had a comment recently from the brother Andrew Charles, another one of his idiotic comments that he put in there. He's talking about why don't blacks have more national pride, as he was speaking about the World Cup and all that other shit. It's like, we ain't got no reason to cheer on no goddamn USA soccer. And I go into this shit about, to be and be honest, me as like a West Coast black, I ain't come across no goddamn soccer ball, none of that. And blacks don't have to show pride that, you know, white's fake and what they call patriotism that is fake. Me speaking about Andrew Charles and many whites that we find on these channels who are new to this country. As I say, a lot of people talk about the immigration of people south of the border, people coming from Haiti, Asian countries, all that shit. A lot of whites are brand new to this fucking country. And what America has provided for them is any immigrant group, they should have national pride and appreciation when they come into America. But you don't have what is Black history. You don't have the Black experience. None of you. And so I want to go in there in the post of the Civil War. We just come up out of Juneteenth, and we speak about freedom and shit. And it's the thing that gets overlooked, as if, you know, there's this post-racial society, because that's the funny shit I remember being taught as a kid, when finally starting to know what slavery was. And they really didn't even teach the slavery shit too deep, because many of the teachers I had who were white teaching in the schools in the area I come from, like I say, I come from a predominantly Black area of LA. And so with white teachers, they really didn't touch too much on slavery like that. The most racial shit I would hear would come from Koreans. As you guys remember from the movie Menace to Society, and hearing Koreans talk about hurry up and buy, go back where you come from, the Koreans will say that shit till we walk in their stores. Talking about, you monkey, go back to Africa and this and that. We be clowning their ass and pissing them the fuck off, making them mad. So many of the teachers, so me especially being a West Coast Black, a Black born in Los Angeles, and many of the Blacks who have migrated to Los Angeles, especially for a kid like me born in the 80s, a lot of the Southern experience was one that many of the Blacks who experienced that and coming to Los Angeles, that many of them kept from even being spoken of to younger generations. We didn't know much about it. Hell, a lot of our families' existence from the South, that, you know, a lot of that old trauma and whatever the experiences were left back there. A lot of people didn't talk about the South, but Los Angeles is occupied by a ton of blacks, majority of the blacks who have migrated from out of the damn South. But like I say, for us, we don't hear much about it. So when we just celebrate Juneteenth, we hear many people act like they don't know what the celebration of that is about. The celebration of blacks who still remain enslaved following the end of the Civil War and the emancipation of slaves. And you have some certain slave owners continue to taking on the policies of this shit. But also following the war, you had to where Southerners begin to lose land. They lost land, they lost rights, as it should have been. That was the righteous thing to do in this country. But this also goes to my intrigue with World War II, because even after the end of the World War II and the fall of the Nazis, America does the same thing it always does, and that is make horrible decisions. And what they decide to go with to fight against something, to challenge the ideals behind something, but on the other end, still support it and still leave it with intact. We go into the end of the Civil War. Confederate whites got their asses slaughtered by blacks who end up migrating north, fighting with the Union Army, saving this country for Lincoln. We end up gaining our freedom. Land was taken over from white plantation owners. They immediately became poor. They lost political power. You start to have the rise of many black folks during this damn time period. And it's a time period of the Reconstruction. As now there's been so much bloodshed across this damn country, where this country wasn't a full country. It wasn't the Californian and the Oregons and all the shit up north. Many of that shit didn't exist. America was half of what it is today. So you have all this bloodshed across the country, slaughter, destruction of building. Well, it wasn't buildings back then. That's the other thing, is you look at time today and you see buildings that occupy multiple floors. That type of shit didn't exist. Probably the highest you got if they had buildings back then was probably no more than 2 or 3 floors, and buildings made of wood and all that shit. So we have all this stuff destroyed in this country, as we have to, give, ill, sick-minded Christian whites from out the South a little bit of get right. And the only way to get them right is to play God and executioner to their asses and eliminate them, force them to waving the white flags and giving up. We end up gaining power. So blacks became Congress members, mayors, governors, and all this other shit. Entrepreneurs and overnight, man, and the expansion of black wealth. This is still an agricultural country. This a country that's industrialized, meaning black folks know how to work the land. Blacks are very creative and inventive with a lot of shit. Blacks just start seeing an upward mobility following this war. And that's the other crazy shit that's not covered. It's just this Indian to slavery. People leave it at theirs, such as me going back to childhood of hearing about slavery existing. Then after this war, having white teachers will teach you that we was in a post-racial society. And then, so as me as a kid, I always scratched my head. Like I said, I've always been a super black prided ass youth and shit. So, but I always scratch my head when hearing this type of shit directed from white teachers to young children about this post-race society. So it's be like, so whites can do all this evil shit to you, and then when the war is over and they lose a war and surrender, everybody just gets over it and they're no longer this and that. This shit just never made sense to me. Then you begin to get into more history, hearing about the shit they done to the natives and shit, killing these folks off, rounding them up and forcing them on long walks and placing them in the concentration camps and shit. So it's just this ill shit. So here you have this rise into black power, political voice, and economic voice, economic power, all this other shit, and it's short-lived. The promise of land that was supposed to be promised to them, 40 acres and a mule, and then also have that promise to be stolen off of a lie from another wicked ass president. Because following the death of Lincoln, because Lincoln didn't even want to promise the blacks this shit. They want to come up with, what do we now do with these free blacks? It wasn't a thing of, okay, we owe them so much, they deserve this and that, because now we come up on this thing that may end up getting voted for tomorrow, and this is coming, what comes up out of the end of the war. And this is another reason why I wanted to cover the sharecropping shit, because it relates to this thing going into court, probably going to be ruled on by the morning, is this birthright citizenship, which comes out of the 14th Amendment and shit. But then you have another amendment that can bring blacks into slavery that comes before that, the 13th Amendment, all that other twisted shit. So going into this shit about what to do with the free blacks, there are even ideals of sending them back to Africa. And that's where the Liberia shit comes from. And some blacks went over there, some blacks went over to Liberia, conquered that damn country, and began to behave and treat Native Africans in the same fashion that whites have done with colonizing the rest of that continent. Shit, some wicked shit. It's just wicked in the way in which the minds of human beings function. So blacks gain land, blacks gain all this power. But then as soon as Lincoln is killed, his vice president begins to reverse this shit. That whole ass dude, what's his name? Andrew Johnson and shit. I believe that's his name. Hold on, let me check, because I always mix Jackson and Andrew Jackson and whatever the other Johnson president names fucked up. It was Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson, whole ass. And I'm going to pull Reconstruction up. I want to read the history on it, but I'm going to just freestyle this for right now. So it was this whole Andrew Johnson who begins to reverse that. Then following Johnson, you had the removal of federal troops from out of the South and shit. And I forget, I'm pretty sure one of the article, and I go into a cover, who was that president following Johnson and shit, who removed federal troops, handed land back over, because that's what Johnson did. Johnson immediately started to give confiscated land back to white owners, as that began to take its process and take a while to be re-implemented and shit, and then also to give them back political power and right. And as soon as that began to take effect, they effectively start to remove blacks' ability to vote. So this is all short-lived shit, and where blacks get to actually get a taste of true freedom in this nation, but it is robbed from them through the political process, a process to where ignorant ass 2020 living as Negroes have downplayed what an election is and the power and what it means, until they watch a white crybaby billionaire motherfucker that they worship and kiss the ass of complain about elections, and does everything now to rob elections as if he's these fucking presidents from the 1860s and 1870s. And this is how ignorant and retarded and psychotic new age dumb Negroes are. I don't know if it's the weed niggas smoke, the crack they motherfucking shoot through pipes, the shit they snort through their nose, whether it's the fentanyl, whether it's the Hennessy, Ciroc, and what the fuck is poisoning retarded Negroes of today's brains. And I ain't even started on white folks yet. But it's the same shit that affects motherfuckers to be that damn retarded of realizing how critical politics is and how crucial a vote is. Because you watching it right now with your favorite motherfucking slave master, the dying one named Donald Trump. So these fools immediately lose their land, power taken from them, lynchings going up, the incarceration of freed blacks. They don't work, they can get arrested for that shit, be imprisoned, forced back into servitude for the damn state and for some damn corporations and all that other shit. Laws written to incarcerate blacks and to place them into a new form of fucking slavery. So now you have the blacks who don't violate the law, but here they are in a world being down south. This is before the migration up north and later headed to the west, of where they no longer own land. And now they have to go back working for these people. Like, imagine how fucked up all this shit is. How confusing all this shit is. And then I hear a peon, retarded immigrant classified as a white dude, Andrew Charles, asks about Blacks' national pride. We're the most prideful motherfuckers in America. We don't follow that white shit. Y'all stick to it. And to talk national pride on some World Cup shit is some foreigner shit. Like, I don't know what the fuck y'all be talking about. It's the same thing I told when I didn't tell the story many times about the conversation I had with my my tank commander we in the NTC. And it was already this shit pushing through my unit about me being racist against whites. And he made a comment about why don't more blacks serve the military and this and that. And I said, what should they for? I said, I served because I was really falling. I didn't have my older brother, Wesley, joined the military. Dad was in the military, serving in World War II. But never once did I hear them speak about what they went through in the segregated military. Pops went through World War II. He's definitely in the segregated military, probably serving under Patton. Never really spoke to us. Like a lot of the old elders didn't talk to younger folks about these experiences and shit. So you didn't hear about it. I just know he served in the military. I'm thinking everything's all hunky-dory and this and that, war hero. Neither did Wesley really speak about except killing people and shit. I hear them stories from him. But outside of that, you don't hear all this shit. So I was telling the white dude, they don't got no right to serve this goddamn military. And then I made a comment to him about, I don't, like, for myself, I don't kiss white people ass. And that motherfucker got quiet than a motherfucker. And I laughed my ass off. And I wanted him to know that shit. And my thinking was probably how a lot of black folks was. And then for him to even make that statement, for him not to even recognize, what's up, CJ? He says Wesley had Cold War stories. Hell yeah, he did. He always talk about killing gooks or whatever he called the Vietnam folks. Like I said, and then I watched him have a flashback in a breakdown over talking about that war. But like I said, with this white commander, like this fool has a lack of understanding of really seeing the big picture of trying to compare with a white experience and a black experience. You cannot compare. It's only a contrast to this shit. There ain't no comparison to that shit. For him to be an old, like I said, I've always schooled older stupid motherfuckers. Always. Because they lack an intelligence, or maybe they want to, or maybe they just want to hide what the true history and past is, and acting as me being a person maybe from where they stop time at. They stop time following the Civil War and maybe and be thinking maybe because I'm 150 years removed from that time period that I'm supposed to forget about and black supposed to forget about it. Like, get the fuck out of here. You motherfuckers be crying about union shit. Be crying about every other thing, the taxation shit. If whites can go into outrage about taxation, storm the Capitol over a vote that Trump lost, that you dumb Negroes think your votes don't count about, then what the fuck do you think blacks have a right to cry about? We ought to have been on top of the motherfucking Capitol building. Fucking peon motherfucker. I wish I was in the military during this time and that dumb motherfucker would have stated that shit to me. I probably would have been locked up in motherfucking Leavenworth from fucking cracking that nigga over the head with a weapon or some shit. Asking that retarded ass shit. But going back into this shit, so now we have to where blacks begin to struggle for opportunity in this fucking nation and shit. When for 12 years, everything's on up and up. So now they've got to go back to working the lands of these white folks. But no longer are they working it for free. They got to work this shit during the time of however you harvest this shit. This is an agricultural country. This ain't no internet, T-Mobile, Apple, iPhone bill, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook ass world. This ain't even the TV world. Turn on your motherfucking girls slapping each other in the head and acting like bopping bitches and weird ass niggas and dumb ass music and none of that shit. None of that shit exists during this time. There ain't no goddamn radios that even exist during this time. So it's just like tripping when you go back into this time. So now these people got to go to these folks' land to now work during seasons to where you gotta fucking harvest this shit, where you gotta plant this shit, water this shit, plow these fields, pick this shit. And this is what the black folks are doing. And these folks are bringing their children out there to work this shit. Cause and I remember hearing an older cat from out the South to where they spoke about how they have, and this is always the thing people talk about with southern families, is how large the families were. Because each child that they have, especially a boy, was income and shit. And I'm watching this one thing about sharecropping where they talked about the way in which schools were scheduled and shit. The schools are scheduled to end, like especially when as cotton phased out, tobacco became the big thing. That now you have to where black schools will close during the time of the cotton harvest. Whites continue to go to school. They lazy asses didn't pick none of this shit. But then when tobacco became the thing to harvest, both schools would be out, but mainly the blacks that worked it. And their families had to work it in order to get their share of the revenue. And it was probably some minuscule shit. Just to get a share of the revenue to be able to provide for their families. Many of those revenues many of that revenue began to be saved, reinvested to be able to buy land, to be able to buy their own farms, their own lands, and now to be able to build their own schools as well, because schools are segregated and all this other shit. So to get adequate schoolhouse, you'd be able to pour money into being able to buy the supplies for wood and all that shit, because they built their own shit. So to build up a new schoolhouse, I guess to be able to have funding, to be able to pay for teachers and all this other shit. This is the hardship in which they live through, and the shit that gets ignored, why everybody just celebrates an ending of some wicked shit. But then we forget, like, damn, so what happened after this shit? Was black people just posted up being cool to the culture of America, busting out cool lyrics, cracking bad chicks? Like, fuck no. These niggas went through a cold ass struggle amongst these degenerate, wicked, fake ass, God-loving, fake ass, God-fearing human beings that existed here in America, brought from across the fucking Atlantic. And this goes back to Angie Charles asking that dumbass question the other day about national pride. I swear I be loving when y'all write these stupid comments in this motherfucker, especially my white brothers, because it takes a lot of schooling that has to happen and shit. Velocity Cuss says white kids listen to you, says listen to you because they feel some guilt, and that's how your soul gets fulfilled. And that even goes in. Remember when you had that little fucking immigrant from out of wherever the Florida governor is from, Cuba or somewhere, wanting to really speak out to be in the good grace of his white leaders, who put him on a puppeteer string. And then also it influenced the other large population of immigrants down there in Florida, and to probably be in a good grace of this deportationist fucking president here to save his people from being kicked back to the country they come from. He had to do this very outspoken thing about critical race theory and about where you shouldn't be taught because whites don't want to hear it. No, a lot of white kids want to hear that shit. White kids have always wanted to learn from black folks. And this is the other thing that makes black folks so critical, so followed. And where you hear a lot of black people, and I wish some black people be mindful before they say the ignorant shit. Everybody want to be black too, it ain't cool. No, people be trying to learn from your stupid ass. They just don't want to be part of that ignorant shit. They may gain some coolness, some grace, some style to it, but I think more of being educated, leading by example. They can't learn from stupid Negroes. Stupid Negroes who hurt and kill other stupid Negroes may have something that others may want to steal from you. They may want to steal your style, your swag, the way you approach women. Some of you niggas don't even approach women, you fucking homos. So maybe even the homos follow a lot of you black homo motherfuckers. And then Picasso says, yo, so California was like the end of the road for the European settlers. Says who started from the east and stole the land and created trails of tears. Yeah, but all that shit is just progressive. All that shit is decade after decade progressive shit, because the natives put up a good ass fight. The natives put up a very good fight, but when you don't have technology to advance yourself, and these people who only advancement is technologies look for wicked ways to kill humans just to dig in the ground and take some damn mineral out of this shit over some weird ass shit. And then this goes back to where this dummy Andrew Charles loves to write, talking about, man, you anti US troops and you so supportive of Iran. I think real Americans will be supportive of Iran. A fake ass American would support this dumbass president and this country and everything else that it has been involved in with other countries. Like all of this shit. And then let me see. Picasso says gold rushes and land stealing and railroads, coal mining says and ferry boats. Well, shit, the railroad is a way to mine that shit up out of there and transport it. That's all the railroad was. It wasn't just to expand this country out west. It was to be able to go into California, remove these minerals, bring them back east, process them, and go from there and shit. As more of the white population is established, the further you go back east. And then all they did is once, and this is the other ill thing when you're dealing with the time period of the sharecropping and Reconstruction, the end of Reconstruction, you move into this Jim Crow shit of you dealing with this mass movement of Europeans looking for new opportunities in a new land, and they're being brought to America as America is looking for its great expansion. It's a big ass country that's just looking for its mass expansion and bringing in wave after waves of Europeans. European population just doesn't sprout up through the natural process. Immigration is a cause of that shit, and the fear of the Negro is well, and the fear is the fear of the Negro population and what the Negro could have did with its ability and labor and the wealth that it will accumulate. So they bypassed that shit, made it harder for these dudes to find work, bringing these people who don't even know the language, and allowing them to occupy land as they begin to homestead shit. Some blacks even homestead this shit. But then it's crazy when you go through the time about how much land blacks have lost in this country in the last 50 years. I was looking at some documentary where they were reporting that from between 1950 and 1997, through the loss of millions of acres from black farmers, that has accumulated to about $330 billion. And then a solution created in the 2000s by a white senator who this is about how the USDA failed to approve black farms with some of the grants and all that other shit, where they went to, what was the Agricultural Act, where they can only use so much acreage to plant certain shit, to give them grants during droughts and all that other shit that white farms get. They play these dudes out, allow them to lose their land and all that other shit, that they come up with a fund of $2 billion, when in the real picture of what they owe these damn former farmers, like $330 billion fucking dollars. And so they just they ain't even enough to put a Band-Aid over a wound. And that's just what they owe the farmers as far as reparation. That's why some people go into what they would truly owe blacks for reparation will be in the trillions of dollars. And then he says if there were guns already in this country, says it would have never been possible to be stolen, says guns versus arrows. And then CJ was talking about Wesley, he's a true ass warrior, man, one of our relatives, no longer here. And then Picasso says I also think about the mental state of the thieves and the homeowners during the colonization period. Says the illusion of them being better class of humans are human beings. No, it's never that. It's all about with the invention of what tools do they use that humans can't go up against. Mano a mano. That's why I don't like hearing the word supremacy. White supremacy. I can't even use the other word that you retarded motherfuckers love using and calling these people. Which I would feel like superpower if I heard black motherfuckers calling me superior if I was of European descent. I'm like, these retarded niggas think I'm superior. They gonna keep using that word, and they think the word cool, and they think the word is something you use when teaching about the wickedness of a system we created. Like the fuck out of here. The system is weak. The system is fractured. The system always get ripped down. The system is just bound by laws which can be changed. And they have to be changed through a political process. Same process white folks follow. I don't know what niggas be on. Picasso says some old motherfuckers are just coasting on. Says us is just coasting on out of here. Says with what they got. Says they gave up the struggle and hung up their helmets. Says children did skip school. Says so they could help with everything because 1 week was $5. Man, Picasso, you got to make more sense of your comments as well. So let me go into this piece written about sharecropping, some of the history and all this other shit, and about the wickedness of this country. Hold on, I'm gonna pull up. I want to see some of these pictures and shit. Let me see this. So look at these black families. So sharecroppers on the side of the road after they were evicted from from membership of the Southern Tenant Farmers Union. So as soon as these families join a union, they are kicked out of this farm where this family is probably provided for this damn white farm. So, but also the other thing that began to damage the white South. So this is the other thing that began to plague, white Southerners and their racism is once blacks start to get information about opportunities up north and left the fucking South in droves, and white farmers no longer having this black labor and shit are in such large order and shit where you can just fire this person because you mad they want more of this and want more of that. Most of the blacks are leaving and going up to the industrial north and then begin out heading west. But then the same thing will follow as these people, whites, become jealous. Whites begin to feel inferior due to the abilities of these people to work and begin to move these fucking corporations up out of there. That's the danger with leaving so much of the country's wealth into the hands of private individuals. And like I said, for all the decades that I've been around and listening to retarded motherfuckers of this country, speaking about how ineffective the government is and how they want to move it towards the business world, which is the private world, and individual wealth, is where they begin to fuck themselves. And so here's this family being kicked off of land that they work for this white fucking family and shit. And their thing will be to move up north. And it's a lot of these people in this picture. And a lot of their belongings just put on the side of the damn road. This would have never happened as long as these people were working for these people as slaves and being as free people. So let me see. It's 26 in the early 20th century, Texas sharecropper home. Let me see. So this is all they had. Imagine living in some shit like that. You got no living room. You probably just got a kitchen. And then there's probably some quarters that you sleep in. There's no plumbing in there. So like when you just look at the comforts that you have currently, imagine these people living in this type of environment and world. And then they down in the South. I'm telling you, that's why when that first summer I was in Texas, homie, a white person couldn't say no foul shit to me because all I thought about was my folks picking cotton in that hot ass shit. That's why I didn't take shit. Like it wasn't about being none of you sergeants talking sideways shit to me. I'm respectable. I'm disciplined. But when the minute I get like a sense of that shit being on some racial shit, like man, fuck all this army shit and whatever else it is. Nigga, I'm about to be the most disrespectful motherfucker in here. Because I'm like just thinking about that South shit. Like y'all in this humid shit, picking cotton in this shit. I refuse to tolerate any of that little funky ass shit I felt with some Klan shit. And then they had just recently drugged that black dude out there in Texas. I wasn't about to take shit from none of them, and I didn't. So imagine you going through this type of shit, living this type of environment, but I guess it's better than what they come from. But in our today's world, so all you have in the house to make up to a house is cooking quarters, rooms are sleeping quarters. They probably small. There's no running water in there. There's probably no electricity in there. And there's, well, not probably, there is no electricity in there. We probably got light candles and that's about it. And then your bathrooms are somewhere out in the backyard and shit like that. You wash your clothes by hand. So, man, come on. The conditions in which they lived in. And so here goes some of them backwood motherfuckers who, if I can go back in time, I would slap the dog shit out of right now. And so here go little small house and shit. This is why I think a lot of black folks, when you go down there in the South, you see them sitting on the porch. They need little homes. They go chapel and shit. Here go a white sharecropper, so he had to work on land, probably doing the least amount of work, making more than the black families that worked this land. He probably the supervisor. Here go a white family, probably fresh from Europe, living out there in Alabama. So she got her kids. She's straight from another country. Clothes much better clothing. She ain't working, but living in a poor house. So let me see. It says Farm Security Administration photo of says Cropper family cropping the weed. Says for us is from Cotton near White Plains, Georgia. So he got his daughters out there, probably the wife and the daughters, and they're having to wear their best clothes. They're probably limited on what clothes they have. Probably having to get out there every day. Imagine the amount of hours they work in doing this shit. So they're not getting paid hourly wages, none of that shit. They probably gonna get paid for whenever they're able to sell some shit. So let me go into it. So history of it. So it says even prior to the Civil War, sharecropping is known to have existed in Mississippi. It says and believed to have been in place in Tennessee. It says, however, it was not until the economic upheaval caused by the American Civil War and the end of slavery during and after Reconstruction that it became widespread in the South. Because the whites needed, please don't leave. I'll pay you. Please stay here. Jethro, please don't leave me. Please, I've been good to you. I've been good to you all this time. I sold and brought your mama and even kept you here, but please don't leave. I need you. I got these kids. Well, how about you have your little funky ass kids work? They don't know how to do anything. Plus, I'm sending them to law school. They're gonna become lawyers. But I need you to help save the farm. This farm has been in my family for about 200 years when we brought y'all over here. Please. So it is theorized that sharecropping in the United States originated in the Natchez district, says roughly centered in Adams County, Mississippi, says with its county seat in Natchez, how you say it. Says after the war, plantations and other lands throughout the South were seized by the federal government. Say, give us this fucking land, you piece of shit, losing ass chumps. We taking this land and we giving it to the blacks. They beat your motherfucking ass and you don't deserve this land, losers. So that's what happens. The righteous thing to do, take that away from them. In January of 1865, General William T. Sherman issued special field order number 15. And that field order was get your ass off this goddamn land, says, which announced that he would temporarily grant newly freed families 40 acres of the seized land and the islands and coastal regions of Georgia. So this is that 40 acre and a mule stuff. Here you get this. Hey, white, damn, where the whites had to go? I guess they say, hey, white, hey, pluck my goddamn cotton. Imagine, I would have loved to live through that shit. Hey, bitch, pick my shit. Go get my mule plugged up and pick my shit. I would have took advantage of that little 12 years. Like, yeah, fuck that. Where the whip at? Go ride that nigga house, steal the whip. Wow. Oh, man, I would have loved to see some whips on they motherfucking backs. I'd have been fucked up as a newly freed black turned slave on it. Oh, hell yeah. I've been whipping these motherfuckers. Would have made them look for the first ship back to motherfucking Transylvania. You getting up out of here. What's up, cuzzo? See my cuzzo Deuce Time in this motherfucker. Says many believe that this policy will be extended to all former slaves and their families as repayment for their treatment at the end of the war. Says in the summer of 65, President Andrew, this bitch-made motherfucker. Andrew Johnson. Look, he just looked like a piece of shit. Oh, long nose, pecker face motherfucker. There go Andrew Charles. I've been looking for your goddamn. I've been talking about your goddamn ass and the stupid ass comments you've been making about national pride. Says as one of the first act of Reconstruction, instead ordered all land under federal control to be returned to the owners from whom it had been seized. So that's where that piece of shit Andrew Johnson, and that was some of the kind of downward spiraling of these new changes in America following Lincoln getting killed by that acting motherfucker who eventually got his ass killed too, as they stalked his ass down like a dog and killed his bitch ass. Wasn't it Andrew? What was the fool killed Lincoln? What was that fool name? What was the name? Somebody write that shit. What was that fool name? William Burr or some shit? Who was the fool killed Lincoln? All right, so continue on. Says Southern landowners thus found themselves with a great deal of land. Says, but no liquid assets to pay for labor. Says they also maintain that the belief that gang afforded the most efficient means of labor organization. I don't get that. Let me see. They also maintain the belief that gangs afforded the most efficient means of labor organization. I'm lost on that, but let me continue reading. It says something nearly all former slaves resisted. Says preferring to organize themselves into kin groups, as well as minimize chances for white males, black female contact by removing their female kin from the work environment supervised closely by whites. That's another thing, not so much. There he is, John Wilkes Booth. Boom, you motherfuckers been paying attention in school. That's why I like to ask these questions. I could have easily typed that shit up. I want to see how many of you motherfuckers pay attention to history. Booyah, I like that. John Wilkes Booth, that punk motherfucker, and doing that shit fucked a lot of where America, that was kind of the turning point, like some Back in the Future type, one thing just throws everything off of maybe progress in this nation when that dude did that to Lincoln and shit. And then Lincoln's piece of shit vice president steps in. But who knows down the line what other president would eventually return that shit back to him. All right, so continuing on. So let me see. So this is the other thing that I like in this article. This is why sometimes I like going to Wikipedia for historical information and then watching these documentaries, is that now it turns from during the slave period, these white damn plantation operators, or what they call them, field hands, whatever they call the supervisor of plantation, and you always hear this shit of them end up having these sexual relations, and whether they taking it from a black woman or form relationships and sneaking around and impregnating these women. In this new system, the black dude's like, fuck no. You ain't none of you. Keep your white ass away from. You go fuck with that old fucking Queen Elizabeth looking bitch you got in your house. Or go do what y'all been doing before you got over here and mess with your kids. So the blacks is like, nah, fuck that. You're gonna stay away from our women. We working this shit. We'll bring our sons, they'll work out there. But if you're a father who had nothing but girls, probably like this guy in the picture we saw, you left with no other option but to have your daughters out there. Because I hear a lot of older black women who I hear talk about having experience, or even older black dudes, but even older black women who speak about having to work in the fields picking cotton and shit, was because there wasn't too many, like their families didn't have too many boys and shit. So you do have to where some females had to work in field. That's why some older black women always been rough. And why I think a lot of black women have this tough exterior, because I think some things are passed down genetically. So to say a lot of chicks today are fucked up, I think genetically some shit is passed down. So you got to blame the grandmothers and mothers and shit. So I think that shit does follow through the bloodline for a little bit, so you can reprogram that shit, weed it out. All right, so let me see. So let me go back into this one. So now I get what this little thing about the belief that gangs afforded the most efficient means of labor organization, something nearly all former slaves resisted, preferring to organize themselves into kin groups, as well as minimize chances for white males, black female contact by removing their female kin from the work environments supervised closely by whites. Black Southerners were determined to resist the old slave ways. Absolutely. Absolutely. You just come off the battlefield from slaughtering and killing these pieces of shit, which really open your mind like, oh, these people is bitch made. Open your minds. All right, so here we go. Says, notwithstanding many former slaves, now called freemen, having no land or other assets of their own, needed to work to support their families. So, and that's the other cold shit, like to even develop like the family groups and you coming off of these motherfuckers. Nah, it would have been a cold slaughter. Like, nah, fuck all this surrender. We about to go back to these plantations and we about to slaughter all these motherfuckers. Because that shit they put through was some wicked shit. And people forget. Let me see. Documented American slavery. So this shit before Civil War had been going on for what? Hundreds of something years? Oh, let me say this shit. Hold on. Let me get the actual year. Let me see. And so I'm gonna have to put chattel slavery and not just regular slavery because it may show whites worked as slaves and all that other weak shit they be trying to do. Well, let me see. Give me 1 second. Google.com. Let me check this out. When did slavery start in America? All right, that's good. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Enslaved Africans were brought. So in the 1600s, so this shit had been going on for 200 fucking years. So they saying enslaved Africans were first brought to American colonies in August of 1619. There were some where blacks be like, oh, blacks have been here. There were some blacks here. They were coming over here with Spaniards and all that other shit, navigating over here with the Spaniards, mingling in with natives and all that other shit. Doesn't make your black ass indigenous for you niggas that be thinking that shit. All right, so but then once you get here and you get in the land occupied by other people, that miscegenation shit is just a natural thing. People gonna mix and crossbreed and all that other shit. So this shit has been going on for 200 years. And that's the other thing people leave out when they talk about the ending of slavery. This ain't like the ending of World War II where the Jewish people went through this shit for like 3.5 fucking years or some shit. This should have been taking place for 200 fucking years before this war. About 250 fucking years before this war pops off. So imagine how long some of these people have been conditioned into this mindset and shit. Strip, fucking become domiciled in a motherfucker, accepting of this shit. It becomes normalized, their behavior and their fearful behavior towards whites, this childlike placing in the hierarchy of male adults is crazy as fuck. All right, so notwithstanding many former slaves, now called freemen, had no land or other assets of their own, needed to work to support their families. And that's what I was going at when I read that part about where I was going with this shit about. So there's 200 years of experience in this shit. These people, and imagine what a family becomes. Like these people been, you get with a lady, you fall in love with her, you impregnate her, and now the motherfucker, a white slave owner or some other motherfucker working on his plantation, jealous of that shit. Once you gone, they take you and then they take your niggas to auctions and selling motherfuckers off. It's crazy. And then split them up. You have a kid. And that's the other cold part with even reading the Frederick Douglass book about when he reached a certain age and not even knowing his mother really, never knowing his family, they sold off. He's sitting here at a certain age. Like, it's crazy. And whites will try to normalize that shit. They would normalize that shit through these religions and make it being accepted. It's crazy as fuck. So now you're going through all these centuries of this shit. Nigga, just take your family, split it. So now during this time period of becoming free, the war's going on. Ain't no selling and breaking the family up. So now you find love with somebody and shit. And now you build your family. Y'all remain as a unit. So ain't no more breaking that shit up. And this is where the family shit and family dynamics amongst blacks, and even as blacks who break up, should be a strong one. You don't break a fucking family. That's what the baby mama shit turns into. Of almost being on some like auction block shit. Like, bitch, you better calm your motherfucking ass down. I don't get why hoes try to pull that shit. Of they're trying to fracture that shit. But some people have this white shit in them and shit. So that is crazy. And why, man, that shit is crazy. The dynamics of the shit, just the dynamics of family and love, especially amongst black motherfuckers. Not everybody's meant to be together, but you should remain something strong where you keep a motherfucker tight knit within their kids of not. But this is what happens when people fail to look into this history like this, or you get the whitewash, soft shoeing versions that are taught in school and shit. It ain't the school's fault, because this shit should be taught at home as well. And it should be taught because it's your fucking experience too. And then says, so do some real research always. He says, ask yourself, says who were those carpetbaggers? And then I got look at that term carpetbaggers, because I'll be mixing it up. I think the carpetbaggers dealing with whites during that time period as well. And he says, all right, so let me continue. He says, let me see, having no land. So they try to support their families. Says the sharecropping system centered on cotton, a major cash crop, says developed as a result, large plantations, and then we'll move into the tobacco side of crops. Large plantations were subdivided into plots, says that could be worked by sharecroppers. Initially, sharecroppers in the American South, says, were almost all formerly enslaved black people, says, but eventually cash strapped white indigent white farmers were integrated into the system. So like I say, even watching this white family, I knew something was different about whatever their experience was, because now the collapse of their white privilege, pristine, generationally wealth fulfilled worlds were turned upside down following their defeat in the goddamn Civil War, the removal of their land that they once held, that being taken away from them, and the fact that blacks are no longer there. They're going to be working for free. You're going to pay now. Says the carpetbaggers wore small hats, says that were paying black people wooden nickels. I don't put this shit with Jewish folks. That's some new age Negro shit. I don't do that shit. This shit is on whites who descend from out that the British Empire, traitors to that shit. All this new age Jewish shit is some shit them German niggas them brought over here, putting that shit on them. Now I don't fuck with Jewish people, but I don't know shit about Jewish people. They weren't here in this land. That is a way to scapegoat the responsibility of whites. So I don't know about all that shit, nor do I care. This shit gonna be on white. So y'all keep looking up. I don't know where y'all sources for that shit come from, but I ain't about to flip this shit on to no Jewish folks. The Jewish folks and Hitler, they can play them games and shit, but I don't fuck with them fools in Israel, none of that shit. This shit was done by whites that came from fucking Europe, Italy, France, and all that other shit. All right, so continuing on. Spain, Portugal, all that shit. You ain't hear no Jewish motherfuckers in this shit. I don't know where you niggas be reading that shit from. Blame it on the Jews. No, man, leave the white people alone. That's some black fear shit. Man, the blacks didn't do it. The small hats did it to it. They wasn't whipping it. They were paying the white man to whip and shit, all that shit. Fuck out of here. So let me continue on. It says, also, so cash-strapped whites end up working this system after they lost everything following the war, following the fact that, you know, this labor system they had of black folks like, nah, fuck y'all. You're going to pay us. Now get your ass out here. Now whites is forced to live in these harsh-ass conditions and shit. All right, so during Reconstruction, the Federal Freedmen's Bureau ordered the arrangement for freedmen and wrote and enforced their contracts. American sharecroppers worked a section of the plantation independently. In South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, says the dominant crop was usually cotton. It says in other areas, it could be tobacco, rice, or sugar. Let me see. Let me go down. It says at harvest time, the crop was sold, and the croppers received half of their cash paid for the crop on on his parcel. Sharecroppers also often receive their farming tools and all other goods from the landowner they were contracted with. So ain't no thing. It was something I was hearing about the contract shit. I forgot what I heard about that shit, that you couldn't break these contracts or some shit. That it and matter of fact, breaking the contract will lead to where you can be thrown in prison for that shit. There was something dealing with these contracts or some shit. So those added some kind of very strict penalties behind that shit. All right, so continue on. Landowners dictated decisions relating to the crop mix, and sharecroppers were often in agreements to sell their portion of the crop back to the landowner, thus being subjected to manipulated prices. And so they don't go to the market. You don't get the have a market decide this fucking plantation on a motherfucker undercutting or devaluing what he's paying you and shit. It says in addition to this, landowners threatening not to renew the lease at the end of the growing season, says we're able to apply pressure to their tenants. Sharecroppers often prove economically problematic. Says sharecropping often prove economically problematic, says as the landowners held significant economic power. Yep. And that goes back to that black family being kicked out and placed on the side of the road. In the Reconstruction era, sharecropping was one of few options for penniless freedmen to support support themselves and their families. Other solutions included the crop lien system. Says where the farmer was extended credit for seed and other supplies by the merchant. Says a rent labor system, says where the farmer rents the land, says but keeps their entire crop. Says in a wage system, workers earn a fixed wage, says but keeps none of their crop. Sharecropping, as historically practiced in the American South, was more economically productive than the gang system, plantations using slave labor, says though less productive than modern agricultural techniques. Sharecropping continued to be a significant institution in many states for decades. I'm gonna get into comments in a second after I read through this passage here. It says a significant institution in many states for decades following the civil wars. By the early 1930s, there were 5.5 million white tenant farmers, sharecroppers, and mixed cropping / laborers in the United States, and 3 million blacks. In Tennessee, sharecroppers operated approximately, and that's because of them losing that war. There was that many whites having to work in that system. So white tenant farmers, says sharecroppers operated approximately 1/3 of all farm units in the state in the 1930s. Says white people making up 2/3 are more of the sharecroppers because once again, whites suffering economically following the end of that war and shit, having to work to get their families on their feet. In Mississippi, says by the 1900s, 36% of all white farmers were tenants or sharecroppers, while 85% of black farmers were. In Georgia, fewer than 16,000 farms were operated by black owners in 1910, while at the same time, African Americans managed 106,738 farms as tenants. That is ridiculous. Around this time, sharecroppers began to form unions protesting against poor treatment, beginning in Tallapoosa County, Alabama, in 1931, and Arkansas in 1934. So what we have going on during this time, so bam, this is a significant time period. 1931, 1934. So the country's going through this New Deal shit, right? Am I right? Fucking when is the collapse? The the Wall Street shit. 1929. Many whites, and it's probably leading why so many whites is working this farm. Ain't no work up north, ain't none of that shit. The economy didn't crash based on the ignorant spending of wealth class whites and shit. Stock market crash. Of course, that's gonna crash the southern economy, this and that shit. So blacks, of course, their conditions going to end up worse. You have that New Deal shit going on. Of course, blacks ain't gonna get reap the benefits of that shit. You got the dam construction about to go on, which is the Hoover Dam. That's a big ass employer and shit. All right, so Alabama 1931. This is the protests in Alabama 31 and Arkansas 1934. Membership in the Southern Tenant Farmers Union says included both blacks and poor whites. Says who used meetings, protests, and labor strikes to push for better treatment. So guess what? Guess was the manipulation of the rich white to probably tell the little retarded poor white, you better than the Negro. Matter of fact, they give them the house Negro treatment. Yeah, you better than that black. What are you doing out there with them and shit? And so continue on. It says the success of these actions frightened and enraged landlords. Says who responded with aggressive tactics. Landless farmers who fought the sharecropping system were socially denounced, harassed by legal and illegal means, and physically attacked by officials, landlords, agents, and in extreme cases, angry mobs. So that's the little tactics they use to kind of crush this type of shit, and mainly effective towards whites. You got to line, white boy. What you doing? Aligning your viewpoints with them black folks. Sharecropper strikes in Arkansas and Missouri. What is that? Boot Hill. The 1939 Missouri sharecropper strike were documented in newsreels. Since a newsreel, "Oh Freedom After a While." Says the plight of sharecroppers was addressed in the song "Sharecroppers Blues," recorded by Charles Barnett and his orchestra in 1944. I'd like to check that out. You know, I was checking some shit out, and then I'll go in the comments. I'm watching this piece on the damn Titanic and shit. And this is some ill shot I know about with the Titanic, to where you have these wealthy travelers and this and that. But I didn't know they had this communication over the fucking ocean, like even back in 1912 with the Titanic, where they showed it where you can pay so much money per letter to send a wire, and the damn Titanic had the ability. I mean, this is the technology at the time, to where they can send out the message or signal that then has to be decoded like 500 to 2,000 miles away. And based on the power produced by the Titanic's steam engines and shit, it helped to fire up these generators, which can push that signal that far out, depending on how what was what's the word I'm looking for? The power that they were generating through the engines and shit, whether the engines are operating at full power or whatnot, will help to increase the range of these signals. So I was tripping off of that. But in this piece I'm watching, there was some record, they call it a record sheet or some shit that a passenger had that survived being underwater, because they had the people when they discovered the Titanic's crash site. And they have all the people that go down there and discover shit. It's all this debris filled and shit. And they go into the ship and they plucking shit from under the ocean and have these exhibits. So the dude have a record sheet. So I'm thinking, like, so being that they didn't have music you can buy on record like that, you'll buy sheets, because a lot of people have pianos. You'll buy the written copies of the damn music notes that I think people buy. So the artist gets credit for composing this shit. This shit was nothing but music notes, is the way that people brought music back then. I was like, that was a trip to think of that shit. So imagine you're an MC and you motherfucking selling your record. Your record is nothing but your lyrics. You got your bars in that shit, and maybe the beat broken down by like E sharp. Oh no, what's the music notes? E flat, fucking B sharp, and all that other shit. I was like, that was crazy. And so that's the way they brought and sold music and shit. And then until they come up with devices to record music and sound and shit. That was some cold shit. All right, continuing on. So says the sharecropping system in the US increased during the Great Depression. So that's during this time, 29, all this shit. Says with the creation of tenant farmers following the failure of many small farms throughout the Dust Bowl. So this is the Dust Bowl that's during that drought shit. So let me see. Through I guess the droughts, they had some kind of some invasive species of bug that came through, ate up crop and all that other shit, and the fact that there was major droughts. So we got that. It says traditional sharecropping declined after mechanization of farm work became economical beginning in the late 1930s and early 1940s. It says as a result, many sharecroppers were forced off the farms. It says and migrated to cities to work in factories and became migrant workers in the Western United States during World War II, West Coast blacks. In 1966, the American Congress abolished peonage. Says after the government had done this, sharecropping has stated, sharecropping has started to rapidly disappear throughout the United States. So that's what that shit was. The impacts, sharecropping may have been harmful to tenants with many cases of high interest rates, unpredictable harvests, and unscrupulous landlords and merchants often keeping tenant farm families severely indebted. Says the debt was often compounded year on year, leaving the cropper vulnerable to intimidation and shortchanging. Nevertheless, it appeared to be inevitable with no serious alternative unless croppers left agriculture. And of course, the country was going to protect it because of the field that many blacks went into. I'm pretty sure whites didn't remain in this condition unless they fail to go to the city, being their rural type people, and the fact they lack education. And many rural whites don't like to be around city folks. So regardless of them looking alike and being able to be protected by these people. All right, so let me go into the chat. And that's what I wanted to cover with the sharecropping thing, which I think is a thing that gets ignored when talking about the ending of slavery, like shit just ended for black folks. And even with sharecropping, the system's dying out, that shit still didn't end shit for blacks. You still got to go into the Jim Crow shit, the separate and equal shit, what black folks did with this. Then black folks move into the civil rights fight, the bullshit that goes through this shit, black folks obtaining wealth and abilities to now become owners of shit. Now they're being redlined, being told where they couldn't be tenants at, and the list just goes on and the fight continues. All right, Picasso says the children in the South, says like Louisiana, says we'll take time from school to work the cotton fields, sometimes babysitting. Says after picking a 800-pound bale of cotton, says in 1 month, so they still barely fed the kids. And it's a harsh time to fucking grow up in. And then when you look at this shit about all this harsh shit we go through, and then you look at the fact of us moving into cities and we be blowing each other's fucking heads off, is some of the most bugged out shit to me of us not knowing shit. And this ain't no shit about what they didn't teach you about yourself. I hate when I hear niggas say that shit. Why? Who taught you to hate yourself? Man, get the fuck out of here with that shit. Because motherfuckers struggle to teach people to learn to love one another. Like, niggas is just fucked up. Kitty Porter's right hand says, salute, says Sharecropper Shelton and the chat. Yeah, man. And it's funny hearing me talk about this shit. And I used to clown that old Mississippi-born grown-ass clown Sharecropper Shelton on this shit. And then my cousin Deuce time in the building. And then Andrew Charles says, sound like Sherman says, gave y'all reparations back then. I mean, shit, Shelton ain't, Sherman ain't give shit. Says, yeah, says, I'm just tuning in. And then Rob G talking about the Spurs greater than the Clippers. And then Kenny Porter's right hand says John Wood Boots. Yeah, they give me the name of the fool that shot the little hoe ass acting dude that shot Lincoln, and then had his ass stalked and blown his fucking head off. They killed. No, did they burn Boots? They burnt John Wood Boots and shit. Then I think they dug his hoe ass up or some shit. Yeah, I think they burned that fool up. Yeah, and then I was looking at shit, even looking at Lincoln. I heard they even try to some of the more Confederate loyalist motherfuckers try to dig up Lincoln body and shit, and then they end up moving it and shit. But Wilkes, I think Wilkes Boots, I think he had a burial, but I think they dug his whole ass up too. But yeah, he went on a run. They hiding that motherfucker. I think some people who try to what do you call them? Accomplice and people who try to aid and abide, or whatever the term is, aid and abet, some fugitive motherfucker. They end up going to getting charged and being executed behind that shit as well. But yeah, they end up blasting this whole ass in a barn or some shit. And imagine the getaway. This is how crazy the time looking back then about the getaway. His getaway, mind, he had a broken leg or whatever he broke or fractured his leg or some shit. He had a getaway on a horse. So that was your getaway, riding a horse. Plays was your entertainment. And the Picasso says, my mom generation says, pick cotton. Says she tells me all about the way they were, treated inhumane. Says back in 94, says I saw a store saying whites only. Says over the door, says New Iberia, Louisiana, says to be exact. I couldn't imagine living in that shit. I would have torched that store. Much of they be burning black churches, I would have been a cold arsonist during that time. I would have definitely burned me a white store down. And this is why I go back into why gangs are important, homie. But gangs have to learn what the importance and cause of the gang shit. But you can't get people to understand the purpose of why it's important to organize, to have these organizations. The organizations ain't to just be out here killing and shooting motherfuckers. But the cause and reason gets lost when niggas start getting on drugs and alcohol and shit. That's one thing why I never supported drugs and alcohol. I never fuck with that shit. Why I've always stayed away from that shit. I never was pressured to get high with motherfuckers, to get drunk with motherfuckers, because I've watched that shit. I come in a time period when they pushing that shit inside of our communities, and I've watched, because I'm an observant young ass dude. And I was watching about what was happening to people, the way people look. That shit was like, trust me, that shit was like to be a kid of my age watching that shit and just watching the overnight changes in our people, the look from watching people being so nice dressed, so fresh, and then just watch this shit just go to shambles, nigga, like on some quick shit. On some quick shit was crazy. Andrew Charles says Booth Mike got away, says, but he wanted to showboat and hurt his ankle. Says no one says says and no one wanted to showboat and hurt his ankle. Oh yeah, I thought he broke it, so he hurt his ankle when he jumped. Says one of his accomplices was a dumbass. Yeah, they end up catching his ass and smoking him. And then, but yeah, them federal troops or whoever it was on his fucking ass. And then Acosta says, where they catch him? Somewhere. That was somewhere in Maryland somewhere, right? Baltimore. That's why I say it is like important for people to take these trips to the East Coast and shit. That shit of what was like eye-opening to me. But for me, I'm a history-loving ass dude. So that's the other reason why I like it. There's so much history over there. And they archive a lot of that history. A lot of that history ain't lost, but it's so much over there and shit. Picasso says emancipation says and being free is two different meanings. Goddamn right. And then as Charles says, Picasso says your I don't know, KOM. And he says your mom. Oh, it says your mom. That's what it was supposed to be. Your mom says your mom says pick cotton. Shit, it's probably a lot of blacks. But that's the thing y'all don't get. Andrew Charles, y'all be thinking cotton picking shit ended because of slavery ended and shit. And there's a lot of that old rural Southern shit. They probably still got that shit down there. And then Picasso says after slavery so-called ended, says the new plan or the New Deal says to put blacks back into slavery. Says women were left in the home. Says men drafted the war. Those all come together. You like can kind of crossing these things up. Says men drafted the war. Says taken to prison. Says killed by clans. Says babies were slaughtered. And then Herschel Reed says, ask yourself who were the carpetbaggers. This is where he's bringing up the Jews into this one. I ain't putting none of this shit about our suffering on Jews, bro. Now the people out of Gaza and Palestine, they can put that shit on the Jews. Hitler can try to blame them and all that other retarded shit. And Picasso says, what kind of humans does this shit to other humans? Europeans. That's who does that shit. Says where this mentality comes from. The Caucasus Mountains. Something went wrong with something went wrong in Europe, man. And that's even why I'll be looking into some of that European history as well. But I'll be wondering, like, when you look at them, everything with them is conflicts. Even when you watch some of these shows that go into medieval shit, it's just wicked, sick shit. Something went on. I don't know if they had some kind of dope going on back then, and they just smoking dope. Even when I look at how y'all eat steak, I be like, you niggas is crazy. You niggas is sick. Eat a steak with blood all in that shit. Like that shit, because I say some niggas are malnourished, and some of them motherfuckers' brains is affected by improperly eating fucking food. So something was going on back then. Maybe there wasn't enough food in that motherfucker, and these fools just look for wicked ways to get shit from people. They ain't shit in Europe. They lack a resource, and they said we need some shit. They probably seen a black motherfucker come there, that nigga in gold and fresh shit. The nigga look healthy, and they said, "Oh hell no, I gotta jack that nigga," and that's exactly what happened. They said, "Man, we gotta jack them niggas." Hey, Einstein. Then they start checking their nerves. Hey, Einstein, they rush Einstein. The Einstein at that time. Your bitch ass better develop some swords, some motherfucking shields, and then we're gonna need you to start working on that nuke. Yeah, we need to get this shit for these motherfuckers. They come over here and shine this shit. This old bitch Melania all on her knees for these black motherfuckers. Picasso says, fear of what? And then Herschel Reese talking about do some research. I ain't doing no research on no blaming slavery on Jews. I done heard niggas in 2020. I started hearing that shit to 2025 and 2024 niggas saying this shit. Trying to shift shit away from these white folks they love protecting. Fuck out of here. Andrew Charles says 2026 says none of y'all experience any of that shit. Neither did you, Andrew Charles. You ain't even experienced running away from your fucking homeland. And then Herschel Reed says the carpetbaggers were small hats, says that we're paying black people wooden nickels. And he says, keep looking. No, that shit doesn't interest me at all. And then Andrew Charles says white people used to work for fake money, says too, in this country. And then what white folks, Andrew Charles, not your family. And then Andrew Charles says it's funny how people are too afraid to say Jew. So they say, I'll be tripping off that shit too, Andrew Charles. I don't know why people use the small hat shit. I don't get that shit neither. It's funny though. Brandon was the first one, I think, on all YouTube to use that term. I think that's the first time I think anybody heard that shit on here was that nigga Brandon Washington saying that shit on when we used to be on Fred's show and they talking about small hats. And then Herschel Reed says, because you don't hear, I've never heard it commonly used until like now people use that shit. And then because people be thinking they're gonna get shadow banned and shit. You know, everybody's on that shadow ban shit. Herschel Reed says, surprise, ninja says, hate to be the, I guess the one that he forgot the word once. Says hate to be the one to tell you. I mean, you can buy into that shit. That makes you shift blame towards, you know, the white people who deserve the blame for your enslavement. Then go ahead. Andrew Charles says that's how deep the fear goes. Says even their enemies can't say their names. Nah, I'd say Jew all the damn time. And then Herschel Reed says, yes, says, the truth is scary. Says, I bet you thought you had a friend. I had a friend of what? What are you talking about, bro? You gotta know who you talking to when you come in here. You gotta know the crowd, Herschel Reed. You in here jumping in here and talking to shit that you talk to the groups that you be in. That shit don't work on me, bro. I don't buy in this shit just because somebody says some shit. I don't be thinking you niggas know half of the shit you talking about. You niggas pick up shit from, I don't know if niggas go to penitentiary and learn this shit, but the shit is inaccurate with the shit y'all be talking about. And the shift shit away from whites is crazy to me. And then Herschel Reed says, who was the merch? I guess it's supposed to be, was it supposed to be the what word were you even writing? Says the Mechards. Let me see. Picasso says, since I believe when you're talking about America, you should specifically, so you should specify what layers, because the people here represent each layer like an onion. Says each layer describes an error. Says, but it's law, etc. Andrew Charles says the only person still suffering from the effects of sharecropping is Shelton. Laugh out loud. Yeah, sharecropper Shelton in here. Nigga talking about LDBC or nothing goes to nothing LDBC ever had. And then Herschel Reed says, I know you think you know everything. He says, go check Vic Dillard. Says African diaspora. Says, and put your research into perspective. Herschel Reed, no. Not about wasting my time shifting American slavery and torture away from white fucking Americans. Like, crazy as fuck. Herschel Reed, and that's the other thing, we getting injected because we got so many people coming from over in that area in Europe that really hates those folks. And they coming in here injecting shit. We got so many invasionist Europeans that have come into America and have tried to reshape its history and shit. And then I say nothing is good. We seen with what these people are doing in Israel, and we know ain't nothing good about them. But I don't know if these people in Israel are solely Jews, are escaped fucking Nazis who avoided prosecution and shit. So World War II fucked up a lot of shit. And then Herschel Reed says, since I learned pointing out the negative produces negative results. Andrew Charles says, not all blacks were slaves and sharecroppers. Says you should read the book Black Bourgeoisie, says by Frank Frazier. Says he writes about the decline of the black middle and upper classes. Now, I won't read that book, but I'm also intrigued by, I don't see many books about how did blacks who are free exist during that society. But I also heard something that some of the free blacks were people who were here before British and Portuguese and Spaniards actually began to establish slave systems in America. Like I say, some of these people were here travelers with the Portuguese and the Spanish and shit who were already over here. And then, so I don't know how they don't get arrested and captured and put in the system, or maybe this is an agreement between these European countries. Like, these people came with us, they free, they've been here for centuries. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I don't know how that works, because you got to also think of the conflicts between European countries and the establishment of this country as well, as they divide this shit up. Hell, Canada, who ran Canada? Is that British? Was that a British or French possession, or was it half and half? What was Canada? Andrew Charles, your people probably closely related to Canada and shit. And then you had the Spanish conquered the Spanish conquered fucking Mexico below this shit, and the Portuguese part of the southern part. Like, so you had a lot of this mixing of the Europeans portioning off this country, as well as the fucking partitioning of a fucking African shit. But the one people I never hear caught up in this shit is the one European group that the wicked European countries hate, the Western European countries hate, and that being Russians. I don't hear Russians in their conquests. And is there something, can somebody write that shit? Or what history books y'all done read through and all that? You don't hear shit about Russians going through Africa and slaughtering. I don't hear none of that shit. And then, but it's mysterious that that American or the former British people here who are America and Britain and France and all these motherfuckers paint them folks is some old wicked ass people, and then all this communism shit becomes the ill shit. It says Canada was French. It says my white ancestors are German and Spanish. See, thank you. I just love saying this shit to you, Andrew Charles, so you can reveal to us that you really are an immigrant. So it was the French. So Picasso says British in Canada, French too. So the French and the because I know they talk French in one of them areas in Canada, but they have like but I also see some shit with the British were up there or some shit. All right, so Herschel Reed says, you say that, says, but when push comes to shove, man, you got to use more of the writing here. They give us 300 words to write a full paragraph in here, Herschel Reed. You don't got to just write a short-ass sentence. Picasso says maybe there were gangs back in the day, says, but they had to survive, says, and now that the times have changed, they changed for the worse because they simply and obviously operate differently these days. No, it went through the same shit. It went through the same shit of starving these people out. They moved west, starve them out economically. You deal with a younger generation. You leave the scarce sources of income and the ability to find their way out. You leaving a bunch of disenfranchised youth whose parents aren't there because they're working. They're operating a family store, and then you start having to worry. Even when you listen to like the younger gang members, like when I listen to the interview from like original gang members for like the Crips, and this even shit that preceded them, you always hear them at young age speaking about before they begin to party. So now as they reach a certain point where a lot of what begins to develop, this is like what develops in just any fucking mammal, or what you can closely relate a human and other animals and shit, is young boys begin to grow and they begin to hit this as they go through the process of maturity and sexual maturity and hormone changes. They begin to challenge shit. They begin to find this pecking order where they'll compete for shit, and it's usually through violence and all this shit. Where you look in prides and fucking lion kingdoms and shit, they kick young males the fuck up out of there before these wild motherfuckers begin to tear shit up, because they don't have the ability or brain power to discipline and put people in check or raise this kid. They just fuck the mother, have these little motherfuckers protect the pride, but they like, this is the motherfucker gotta go. Because he gonna end up challenging me, trying to fight me. Then he gonna end up trying to fuck his mother and his sister offspring. This nigga got to fucking go. So same thing with young dudes. They reach a certain point, they want to challenge shit, but we have the ability to raise ours. We have the ability to raise our young. And this is why it's always been a thing of where it's always been this talk about, and it's an ignorant thing because it's an uneducated society of humans in this society of, when the boy becomes 18, he got to get the fuck out of here. But back in the day, it's probably like 15. That little nigga got to go. You ain't got no job. You ain't got shit. You got to go. Then when you can join the military, you're going to go to war. So this shit of when you're dealing with these young dudes and this misguided maturity or this misguided development in young dudes and hormonal changes that people are too uneducated to even understand that shit and what's going on with these young dudes. And then you start dealing with where you hear these dudes tell these stories about them starting to drink. You hear about silver satin, the mad, whatever the fuck they were drinking back then. So that turns into shit. Now these little niggas under the influence of some shit. And it's clouding their ability to decision make already with a poorly developed fucking mind. And now they're broken into these groups who want to clash with other motherfuckers. So they'd already get the motherfucking wheels rolling on some fucked up shit. Then they dealing with a oppressive departments, being police departments and shit, targeting these motherfuckers, scary ass whites who eventually run up out of these communities, get scared on some Fresh Prince and Bel Air shit. They leave, move to the Fresh Prince of the suburbs. And then now you start having to where this country begins to throw drugs into the mix of this shit. So yeah, that shit became disastrous and all that shit. And then Herschel Reed says, have you been there? That's all I want to be know what you talking about, Herschel Reed. That's all like y'all gotta write, bro. We gotta write. I'm big on about people writing and using punctuations when they write and making sense of what they write, not short little sentences. You respond to shit as I'm talking about it, but I'm not in the chat. So therefore I get to the chat. This comment you wrote was to something I probably said 30 minutes ago. So please write. They give you what, 200 words to write with, 250, 300. Hold on, let me see how many words they give us to write with. Let me see. Oh, it ain't showing. I'm pretty sure they give you about 200 some damn words to write with, bro. Use the motherfucking words. And then as Charles says we had a football coach Says back when I was a kid, whose grandmother was a slave. Says the shit wasn't that long ago. Says I'm aware. Yeah, absolutely, it's not long ago. The ending of it ain't that long ago. Herschel Reed says you scared. Says you admit the truth to yourself. Scared of who he talking? He must be talking to one of y'all in the chat. I'm lost on what he talking about. He says my dad used to says a scared man says can't win. Yeah, your dad was right. So you need to stop being scared. Then Herschel Reed. Angie Charles says he's a respected black author, and it was talking about what the people who ran Canada and divided shit into British and French. Angie Charles says Canada was French. Says my white ancestors are German and Spanish. And Picasso says our gang sovereign. They sovereign. They don't own shit. Hell no, they ain't sovereign. Sovereign for what? And Picasso says no discipline, no order, no respect for human life. Says no, etc. In my opinion, I guess IMO is my opinion, right? In my opinion, says, but even our own government says retarded. Yeah, our government has a lot of these little bigot motherfuckers who should be the one order at hand that people have to identify as the issue. The solution to shit is remove bigoted type people. To even remove the bigoted business minded motherfucker and just a business minded fucker in general. Because most bigots ain't gonna display themselves in the most ignorant manner of Trump, but to get business-minded people to fuck up out of there. I think our country needs to shift more towards people who are more socialist, like a socialist type mindset nation, but a nation that allows for individual wealth, but not to reward. We shouldn't be rewarding a lot of wealthy families to where that wealth passes down generational line. No, that shit needs to be broken the fuck up. Their kids need to become something more productive, more inventive, but to allow worthless, uninventive, unintelligent motherfuckers to continue on to have access to American wealth and to pass it, like, no, absolutely not. They need to be putting into that shit. And changes to what wealthy people are allowed to do, and that just needs to end. But to remove these people who have no level of intelligence, no ability of progress, the people who invent and research things are left to have to answer to these worthless ass motherfucking business people, and that's where America's backwards. We wouldn't have this fucked up health system that we have. We wouldn't have this insurance industry, which is predatory than the motherfucker is worthless. It does nothing for people. We wouldn't have all these different mandatory requirements that take money you didn't earn that you can't save, that you got to pay to some shit that doesn't give you shit. Like, that shit has to be done. Looking at Chris Johnson shit, the shit of what he's suffering from, and the fact that diseases like that depend on research, where you get business-minded motherfuckers and who they can appoint just look for things to cut. We don't need that. We don't need to research that shit. And then more and more of these damn diseases become more progressive, no researches and no cures for, because we're pulling money from that shit. And then we're allowing too many fucking industries to control the companies that develop medicines and shit. Get these motherfuckers up out of here. They don't care for shit. The history of what Black history is shows you how wicked these motherfuckers can get. And it's simple as that. Political change is everything. And political change ain't through Black people listening to what white folks will try to Jedi mind trick them into fucking believing. And that's just the goddamn truth. America goes nowhere without powerful minds and opinions from a Black voice. And that's simple as that. Whites can be as jealous as they fucking want. America has seen the last fucking 250 years of existence and the failure of these old suit-wearing, business class, capitalistic pieces of shit in control of this shit and failing decade after decade, century after century. It's simple as fucking that. And then Herschel Reed says that right? Says we need to get rid. I don't know why you said get or that was a mistake. Says get rid of the bigots. Absolutely. What you think, they belong here? We should keep the bigots. I mean, you give your answer on that. I mean, it's simple as that. But that's why you come up with this shit about trying to inject some old Jews and shit. I'm glad you wrote that comment because I can really see right through what the fuck you were writing that shit for. But let me see your response to that shit, since the bigot should remain. Let me see. I'm gonna give you a second before I end this one. Let me see. Gridlock lawmakers have ceded authority. Oh, I thought they came out with the Oh, I thought they came through with the birthright citizenship shit. That shit about to be some big time shit. Let me see. I'm gonna give it 2 minutes, man. Herschel Reed, you gonna write your next comment before I end this shit. That shit. I wonder what's going on with the Haitians, because I see they gave Trump the ability to remove these motherfucking Haitians and shit. They removed some protective status that a bunch of them had. A high number. I know there's that many Haitians in this damn country. But they doing some shit. And he targeting a lot of motherfuckers. Your skin dark, that motherfucker, and you're a foreigner, that motherfucker on your ass, homie. And y'all voted for that motherfucker. And that's why I say that's what some of y'all get. I'm a political motherfucker. So I can be as fucked up as it is. I throw my hands up like the fuck you get. Because some of y'all politically try to lie yourselves with this type of shit. And was whole ass people. And then when they suffer and be crying, everything people supposed to be there to fucking protect and help them. Like, fuck no, I'm a black American, gonna stay there. He says because they are all going to admit being a bigot. Man, you gotta learn to write, bro. Can you write that again? I do not know what the fuck you were writing. It says because they are all going to admit being bigots. It says, okay, I'm lost on even what the fuck you wrote, bro. So I know you're not making sense on none of the shit you're talking. And then Picasso said, what time is it? I'm about to say I would have dropped the link so you can talk that shit because the writing part ain't cracking. And then Picasso says the American system is about majority ruling class, right? Says, but the majority has plotted against everyone else so they can stay in control over resources. It says, what should the minorities do at this point? It ain't even no more when you dealing with, and they have been warned about this shit, dealing with oligarchs and all that other shit. And when they went through majority votes to get in the system, and they don't implement none of that shit. Trump talking all this America first shit, and it's really I had seen somebody put in the post that his family first. That's simply it. And Herschel Reed says, "Where's the link?" Man, I wasn't gonna put no link in this motherfucker because of the time it is. I'll give you 5 minutes so you can talk and cook and talk this who's off code and all that other shit. I just gotta hear it. Like I can tell from when people like you write on what kind of shit you on. So please get on here, cook. Don't come on here on no damn Hebrew Israelite debate shit. Just cook. Because your writing is like this.
And it's so funny.
Man. Get off here. Get off here. I know I'm here. I'm here.
Wait, how the hell you gonna say you'll catch another day after I drop the damn link? Man, if you don't knock that shit off, bro. This dude just say drop the link. Or where's the damn link? As soon as I put the link in there, this dude talking about some other day. Yeah, this is exactly what he wrote. Where's the link? You're off code. Not your, but you're off code. Not your is a proper writing. Says I'll catch you another day. Man, if you don't knock it out, man. As I can tell when I see the way y'all writing the shit y'all be speaking on, how you try to throw shit off, create debates. I'm talking about sharecropping, going to my history. You want to throw a Jews in it. I don't know nothing about no Jewish history and about Jews in this motherfucking country. And what they got to do with our enslavement. And niggas do the Jews and that shit be trying to ignore these white motherfuckers been whipping your motherfucking ass and putting drugs in your motherfucking neighborhood and shit. The fuck is this crazy? I ain't got no experience with fucking Jews. I don't know them motherfuckers. Ain't start hearing about the motherfuckers Talmud to fucking Chicago and shit and hearing about Holocaust and shit. I don't know about the motherfuckers. I ain't never seen a Jew in motherfucking LA to way at the high school and shit. You got you old 2,000 motherfuckers talking Jewish shit and all that other shit. Scared of dealing with these white American motherfuckers. He says, I knew you don't understand. Why you write it? I got to hear the way you talk, homie. I guess you should have wrote, I knew you wouldn't understand, not I knew you don't understand. No, man. Like, we can't be people who want to try to educate people and fill them in with what this shit that's supposed to be your knowledge, but you have to have the ability to write that shit. Not I knew you don't understand. No. It'd have been better if you wrote it, I knew you wouldn't understand. Like, man, the link is in the chat. Like, you can catch another, but you writing in the chat. Or maybe at work or around people and don't want to be. I get it. It can be that kind of situation. You don't click the link or not, I'm about to end this one. But I give people the platform once I finish my talking and whatever I got. I'll open the platform, but I want to be on it. I realize it's this late. I forgot I did come back late from the fucking gym. All right, so let me see. Let me see his response to this one. Is he going to jump on and educate or give his segment on this shit before I end this shit? Let's see. All right, looks like that's a no. All right, so I'm about to get off of here. Got 20 seconds. See what this dude gonna do. But we gotta get our writing back. We gotta get our writing down. Especially we're gonna be black folks that want to fill in shit on educating people and all that other shit. Like, make sure our writing is right, spell check is good, the whoop de whoop, and the list goes on. Like I say, black folks should be like, I'm big on pushing educated shit, nerd shit, all that shit, because all that old black people just being at the bottom of the barrel, being uneducated, can't talk, and afraid to be around group. Black people really fear whites out of their lack of intelligence, like feeling inferior to a motherfucker on some intellectual shit. Can't have conversations that involve meaningful shit. So you're afraid to be around them, uncomfortable around the motherfuckers. You think that highly of them and shit. They want to get around other low-browed niggas and shit and want to get high and drunk and talk dumb shit and use dumb language and dumb pronunciations of shit and continue to fail yourself and then pass that shit on where kids around listen to how niggas talk and then the kids be dumb as fuck. And then why the bitches is stupid as fuck. Like, that's why I be on that shit. And I be just looking at, because like I said, I watch us go for some. That's why I be watching certain old shit. Or like when they show black people in good standings in certain time, that should be breaking my motherfucking heart. And then I'll be seeing niggas just so comfortable being stupid motherfuckers. And then watch themselves in the coolness of being stupid motherfuckers. Like, the fuck is going on? Like, I don't know if parents been dropping motherfuckers on their heads or what the fuck is going on, because it can't just be drugs. And then let me see, he says it's better this way, says Salty Balls. Yeah, you an uneducated fool. But my platform is always open to people. I ain't no egotistical motherfucker. I ain't it's my way or the highway and I know everything. Not at all. You may hear me clown and say this always right with Reggie on shit. That's just my push on challenging motherfuckers on some intellectual shit. It's as simple as that. He says, says number 2, says 9, knock it off. Says knock it off, ninja. Says 9, knock it off. The link is in the chat. He says, you know everything. Man, I'm glad you think that, because you may have been over here listening. You've seen I know a lot. You see that I know a lot. And you should know a lot too. Should be nothing wrong with niggas knowing shit because they have studied shit. That's all knowledge comes from. But learn the right shit, because there's so much wrong shit, or make sure you learn the full thing. And if Picasso says, I passed my reading and writing college courses, Says and went on to English 1 and 3. Says history 1 and 2 as well. And the Picasso says I still have my books. Says still have my books at home. But yeah, folks, so that's all I got. I'm out of this joint. I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Hopefully they made a ruling on this birthright citizenship, because I want to see what are the effects of that shit. But I'm out of here. Peace.